The women were the most important people in our lives. I remember being taught we were born from a woman, and that's where you come from. So you always respect that. And never again did I disrespect a woman in my life. So that's the way I remember his teaching. I still remember to this day what he said.
The women would train their sisters' daughters to be Dakota women. It wasn't the mother's responsibility. The mother's responsibility was to raise them and to provide for them, but it was the auntie's responsibility to teach them those cultural things. Same with the uncles would take responsibility for the boys, and they would raise their nephews and teach them about the roles of the boys, do their rites of passage, things like that. It was the uncle's responsibility to teach them about the culture, the language, the history, all of that stuff. And the father is a provider, provides love and things like that, sustenance, whatever. So in our way, they say, my brother's kids are mine, my sister's kids are mine, my kids too. So we didn't have nieces and nephews, those are our children. And that's how our families were raised. So the grandparents were giving the grandchildren sacred knowledge for them to carry on, because the parents didn't get a chance to do that. They're so busy working, doing whatever they have to do to survive. So the grandparents would take that spot and teach their grandchildren. And because that information was so valuable to the children, every time they said, go and help your grandparents, they never said no. They always said, okay, I'm gonna go to grandpa's, I'm gonna go to grandma's, I'm gonna go visit, things like that. So they were very close.
My grandmother always doctored us. She knew what kind of herbs or whatever she would dig up in the summertime, and she would dry them, and she would use that for a cold. If somebody was, sometimes it seemed like a pneumonia, no bad cold, that she would give us, make those herbs into a tea, like, and then she would give us that. And she would also, if we had a bad chest cold, she would put something like mustard, a mustard plaster, like on your chest. She would always say it with prayer. Everything was in prayer, like in spiritual, in the spiritual way. I think that's how we survived.
Well, everything belonged to the women. And each family had someone to speak on their behalf. There was no such thing as election system. The family got together and they picked one person, put him in there. If he didn't listen, they could pull him out of there. And you see, each time something happened, there was a chief. If there was war, you took your best warrior. If there was a hunt, you took your best hunter. And if there was politics involved, then you went back to the chief.
Back then, we all learned how to skin animals, pluck ducks, and cut them up and store the food. When I was 12 years old, I was able to skin a deer by myself and cut it up. So we all learned that.
The women will say what needs to be done, and the men were spokespeople.
Every camp had different chiefs for different specific areas. They had one that was just the leader for the camp, like the political one, and they had a war chief as well. In order for them to go to war, the war chief would ask his wife if it's okay to go to war, and sending the young warriors, and he wouldn't make a move without, and they wouldn't make a move without first asking their women.
My grandfather taught me that if a man and a woman pray at exactly the same time, the Creator is going to hear a woman's prayer first, because they bring life into the world. They're the first teachers, they're the first counselors of their children, they're the glue to their family, they're the backbone of their family. So you have to respect all women, you have to be respectful of them, and you have to teach others to respect women. So that's kind of the teachings that I got as I was growing up It's kind of how I try to carry myself in my life.